Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm the Retro Tech Nerd. Today I wanted to do a quick video on a fatal flaw that I found on the RGB10 Max while playing it. The RG351P has been my daily driver now for the past couple of months. But since I got the RGB10 Max, I've pretty much transferred all my games and tried to make this my daily driver. But recently, when I was doing my Dreamcast test, if you looked at the last video, I discovered a fatal flaw on the RGB10 Max. And the fatal flaw is the extremely dim screen that makes certain games unplayable. And to illustrate my point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 3 examples. So I'm going to start with the game Metropolis Street Racer, and then we are going to be trying Resident Evil Code Veronica and Zelda Majora's Mask to illustrate the problem. So let's start with Metropolis Street Racer. So right now I've got Metropolis Street Racer, and you can see, I don't know if you can see on the camera because you're probably going to get mainly the reflection, but the game is so dim that it's barely playable. It's almost impossible to see where you are going, and the game is actually at max brightness. As you can see, I literally just crashed. Now, if we compare that with the RG351, you can see how much clearer it is. I don't know if you can see, because I know you'll be getting a little bit of the reflection of the camera. But it's night and day, absolute night and day. You can see where you're going. It's just incredible, the difference between the 2 games. I mean, I'll just try and put them side by side if the camera can focus. Absolute night and day between the 2. The game is simply just too dim on the RGB10 Max, rendering almost unplayable. So that's the first example. We are going to switch next to Resident Evil Code Veronica, so you can see how bad the RGB10 Max dimness really hurts the gaming experience. Now, for our second example, we are going to try Resident Evil Code Veronica. You will see the very beginning of the game is just unplayable. The very first part of the game, you use a lighter to be able to see where you are going. So it's the perfect example to illustrate how dim the RGB10 Max screen really gets. Because as you'll see in a second, it's nearly impossible to see where you're going. I can see just from the camera you're getting an awful lot of camera reflection rather than the actual gameplay. I mean, I'm not even looking through the monitor and I can barely see what's going on the screen right now. And again, that's at full brightness. So let's cut the cutscene and let's look at the gameplay. I don't know if you can see. You can barely see anything. It's so difficult to be able to play this game. You literally have to be so close to the screen to be able to make out anything whatsoever on the screen. Now, let's compare that to the RG351P. So we'll start a new game as well, and we'll just let the cutscene run a little bit so you can tell the difference between the 2.
The American Midwestern town
Well, let's start actually. So let's. Can you see the difference? It's absolute night and day. Night and day. I can see what's going on. I can see that she's been freed. You know, the character is clearly visible, although you know it's a dark scene. The difference is absolutely night and day between the two devices, and this is the issue that I have with powkiddy. They just have a problem with finish. The RGB10 Max is a great device by powkiddy standards, but they're still quite a long way from Umbernic. You know, the sacrifice that they made on the screen brightness is simply not worth it, because on a device like the RG351P, although the screen is dim, you know, I mean, the scene itself is dim, I can make out what I'm playing from a distance. You know, I don't have to have my nose in it. Now, let's see if I cut the cutscene, and you can see the difference between the two. If the camera can focus. Like, the RGB10 Max practically looks black. Like there's nothing going on the screen. And again, both devices are on full brightness. You know, it's very disappointing, really. Because I was planning on doing the RGB10 Max my daily driver, but that's not going to be possible because Code Veronica is actually a game I've not finished. The last example that we have is Majora's Mask, which is another game that I haven't finished, and I was planning to play all those two games on the 10 Max, but it's just not going to happen. So I'll have to revert back to the RG351P as my main device. But before we do a conclusion, let's have a look at my last example, Majora's Mask. So, as mentioned before, the last example that we are going to take is Zelda Majora's Mask. So, I've already paused a scene on the RG351 using the RetroArch shortcuts. So, we are going to compare the intro scenes between the two devices side by side just to see how that goes. So that's the scene. Can you see the difference in brightness? Both devices are max brightness at the moment. You can see that the RG351P is much brighter. I will say about 40 to 50% brighter at max brightness. It's very difficult to actually see what's going on in the on the RGB10 Max. I know the cutscenes are slightly offset, but you can compare the scene one after the other, and the RG351P is clearly much brighter. So you can actually see what's going on. You don't have to be so close to the screen to try and, you know, distinguish what's going on the screen. So it's a massive letdown, really. It really is a shame, because the RGB10 Max is such a good device with the big screen, but powkiddy cutting corners on the screen has really hurt the device. I mean, you can see on the text right now, on the same actual, you know, scene, the RG351P is just so much brighter. Now, this is not even the worst of it. The worst is when you actually start playing the game and getting in some caves. So what I'll do is I'll get both devices on the same spot, so you can see what I'm talking about. So now I've moved both devices at the same spot in game. You can look at the RGB10 Max, I'm just trying to not get as much reflection of the camera on the screen. You can see how extremely dim it is. I can barely see anything on the screen from a reasonable distance, and again, this is at max brightness. And now look at the the RG351p. Night and day, the difference. Night and day. You know, I can get the reflection of the camera in there, but when I put it at the right angle, it's very, very visible, you know, whereas the RGB10 Max is just really bad. It really makes dark games unplayable on this device. I was hoping to make the RGB10 Max my primary device because I really liked the big screen. But two of the games that I was planning on finishing, which is Resident Evil Code Veronica, because I never finished it, and Zelda Majora's Mask, are simply unplayable on this device. So for that reason, I'm going to revert back to the RG351p as my main device. Again, it just shows the build quality of Ambernick, and you know, powkiddy cutting corners on that beautiful 5-inch screen has really hurt it, because the brightness of a device like the 351p feels like it's almost double the max brightness of the RGB10 Max, and for the price it's simply not acceptable. So to me, that's probably going to go back in the box. I don't see myself really playing with the RGB10 Max much more, really. So the RG351p will be back to be my daily driver. If you find the information useful, please make sure to like, and if your device has the same problem as mine, please let me know in the comment section below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll be back with another video. Thank you very much. Bye for now.